Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Sustainable Tallahassee's Green Drinks. This for the month of June. I had really hoped to be able to see all of you in person by now, but well, here we are. Um, Tonight we have a great show for you. We have Mary O'Brien, a local activist who is interested in living a plastic-free lifestyle. She runs a Instagram account that she's going to tell us a little bit about, all about how to minimize the use of plastics in your everyday life. Before we go ahead and start that, though, I do want to let everyone know that, again, Sustainable Tallahassee is an independent 501c3 nonprofit. We very much appreciate your membership and your donations. They help us keep the lights on, keep our programs going. And as with most nonprofits during the coronavirus times, we are always in need of your generous contributions. So if you can find it within your budget to donate to us, we very, very much appreciate that. I'll go ahead and bring her in now. This is Mary O'Brien. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of technical difficulties, and Mary is without camera, but she is here. She's going to give us a talk. And unfortunately, you all will have to just look at me for the entire time. So, Mary, whenever you're ready.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that, Mike. We tried to work through it to no avail, but thank you all for having me here today. I'm really excited to share where I've been coming from and where I'm hoping to go moving forward in the future here. So as I understand it, kind of the format is you want me to sort of explain my journey, and then we're going to do some question and answer as well, correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your experiences living a plastic-free life, and then folks, you at home there, if you want to type your comments in on Facebook, they'll show up and we'll read them off, and it's kind of a combination of an interview and a Q&A. So yeah, Mary, if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about your plastic-free lifestyle.
Great. Well, I have, just going way back, I have always felt a certain amount of responsibility about the state of our environment, and will get really empathetic and really kind of feel guilty as well if I saw that an area was being polluted or there were just in general environmental issues somewhere. And so I've always kind of had that calling, I guess you could say. And as I've gotten older, I've looked at different ways to funnel that interest. And I've always kind of tried to minimize my waste, but it was more challenging until more recently, as more products have become available that have really assisted with that. And one of the main things that I would say was a turning point for me was when I became a vegetarian. I had been reducing the amount of meat I would eat for quite some time, and then I just decided to go full-blown vegetarian. And really that skill set of just kind of making a decision and sticking to it. And sometimes it can feel a little bit awkward if you're at a social gathering, and you're not wanting to eat meat, but other people are. All of those skills that I learned from doing that really lended themselves well to this journey of not using disposable plastic. And some of the areas that I would say that I started with first were, one was having pet waste bags that were more biodegradable. So I started that back when I lived in Portland, Oregon, actually. So that was about 10 years ago. So I had gotten a dog for the first time, and I just felt so guilty constantly using these plastic bags to pick up after her. I didn't have my own yard where I could, use more of like a shovel type of a situation. And so I found some plastic that was made out of cornstarch, and it's biodegradable. Of course, it's preferable that it not go in the garbage, but oftentimes that would be the case. But still, I wasn't creating additional disposable plastic, which I felt good about. So that was one of my first steps in that direction of not using disposable plastic, but more of an alternative. And then one of the other things that was a first step for me was having reusable grocery bags. And I will say that that was a long a long road because I kept forgetting my grocery bags. I had good intentions, but 9 times out of 10, for probably like, it took me a year before I really developed the habit of consistently using them. Now I pretty much never forget, but that took a long time. And I really think that the turning point for me was when I got some reusable grocery bags that I just really liked. I think they look cool and they're a nice size. Beforehand, I had just been using the freebies that I would get at different places, or the super cheap ones that are kind of made out of like a mesh type fabric. And I never really liked the way they looked very much. But these, I get like excited to use them. And I think that's why I finally started remembering them on a consistent basis. So I would do that. That was kind of another step that I had. And then in the grocery store in general, I was trying to reduce my disposable plastic. And I always felt like produce bags seemed to be, for me anyway, not really necessary. I live by myself. I could see how if you have a family and you're having just a lot of produce, you know, it definitely can be helpful. But I would oftentimes just not use a produce bag, and then I started seeing that there were reusable produce bags that were also an option. And so I've been testing out different brands and stuff like that, and trying to get some favorites with that. And it wasn't until more recently that I started exploring the bulk department of grocery stores. For me, that was really kind of a intimidating section as far as knowing how to work that whole process, and if there's a line behind me at the checkout, if I have to fumble for where the PLU number is or whatever. And I was kind of anxious about it. So I started small. I would just maybe have like one bulk item in a checkout or something. And then I had graduated to having more. And the other thing that I was concerned about is how it all worked. Like if I would bring my own jar, or if I use one of their bags, or once I get home, then do I put it in a jar at home or keep it in the bag? So I've kind of worked through that as well, and no longer feel intimidated by the bulk department. But that was a huge step when I started checking into that area more. Obviously, it's a great way to reduce your disposable plastic and just waste and packaging and stuff in general. So those were some big milestones for me as far as grocery shopping is concerned. And also with food, since coronavirus has started, I wanted to decrease the amount of grocery trips I would make. And so I started doing more produce gardening. I'd always done a lot of gardening of pollinator plants and things like that, but I started becoming more interested in vegetables. It's mainly vegetables that I have, and herbs here. And so that's been really fun. And then another area that I would say even before the grocery stuff, I managed to streamline was my cleaning supplies. Not only was that for disposable plastic reasons, but also for the reason of just all the chemicals that I would be bringing into my home, and not being so sure how I felt about that. And so I do really focus on, for my cleaning supplies, baking soda, white vinegar, and then just basic soap. And then I use sponges and rags to do the cleaning mostly, and then some essential oils I'll use as well. I would say it's probably cheaper than a lot of other options, but yeah, so I don't have really any other cleaning supplies in my house. And that was in part came about also just living in small apartments where frankly there just isn't a ton of storage space for a wide variety of cleaning products. And oftentimes if you go to like a Target or what have you to buy cleaning supplies, it seems like one cleaning product you need a different product for every job, it kind of feels like. And so it's easy to end up with quite a collection. So those have been, some of my steps that I've had. And I guess the takeaway that I hope you see is I've come across people too that are in the zero waste movement or something, and they have a jar, and that's like the only waste that they've had in the past however many years. And it seems so unattainable, I think, and intimidating when you see that, or at least it did for me. And so instead, for me, it was just more of a commitment that I was going to make an effort in a certain area in my life, and I would just try and start seeing and taking notice of all the places where I was using disposable plastic in my life. And then I would go home later and think about, okay, how can I avoid that next time? How can I do it better moving forward? And so that's what it's been a lot of for me: one step forward, two steps back, and just keep trudging on and trying to improve and learn and everything like that. So that's sort of been my story in summary with this effort.
Yeah, so one of the things I think that you just mentioned just a second ago there about taking notice of where all of the waste is generated, and just kind of taking an inventory of, I generate waste in this aspect of my life or in that aspect of my life. Was there ever a point at which you kind of did kind of like a waste journal where you're just writing all these things down before making any kind of improvements? Is that something you'd recommend people do?
That's definitely something I would recommend people do. I took a college class my freshman year in undergrad, and I still remember it to this day. We watched a documentary about garbologists and the study of garbage and how they dig through people's garbage, and that's, their way of understanding them and better understanding ways to help the environment moving forward. So taking an assessment, I mean, I do think to myself when I take my garbage out, like, well, what is in here? Like, what have I got here? And how can I make different choices in the future so that I won't have this next time? I wouldn't say I had anything so formal as a journal, but I am a list maker. I'm definitely known for that. And so I would kind of just have like little reminders to myself, like research such and such, and look it up. And, I think it helps if you're excited about it and you feel like it's, a win if you figure out a way to get around it. Like, for example, I've just recently discovered some different solutions for cleaning in my bathroom, and it was very unexpected. And so I was just like so proud of myself, like, oh my gosh, I'd been trying to come up with something for the longest time, and I found like this doodad, which is really going to do the trick for me, I think. And so I think it helps to get excited about those wins. But yeah, if you do do a journal or some sort of list, crossing it off or whatever it is, and then having that awareness kind of in front of you can be really powerful, I think.
Yeah. So when you first got started with this, was there any favorite resources that you have? Any particular websites or books or anything like that you would recommend people visit if they're interested in starting this as well?
I liked 4Ocean. So it's the number 4 and then the word ocean, and it's all together. They're based out of Florida, and although they don't spend a lot of their time talking about alternatives, it is really inspirational. I think that these two friends went on a surfing trip and were really down about all of the garbage on the beach, and so they decided to do something about it. And then just seeing all the people that are part of that organization that are motivated. And it can feel a little bit isolating sometimes if you're embarking on a lifestyle that's different from those around you that you're involved with on a regular basis. So I do think whether it's virtual or otherwise, having that group that you can kind of identify with and feel motivated by is helpful. So I like 4Oceans for that reason. As far as others that just have really good tips and tricks, to be honest, nothing really comes to mind other than I have a variety of different people that I follow, and kind of as a whole, I find it helpful. But I'll try and think of some specific ones and get back to you on that afterwards.
Yeah, we'd be happy to post those on our Facebook page here for everyone who's on the stream right now. A couple of questions that are in here in the chat. One of them is about the effects of COVID on bulk purchasing, and whether or not stores are reducing the amount of bulk purchasing options because of concerns about COVID. Have you experienced that in the last couple of months?
I have definitely experienced that. One grocery store that I go to a lot, they pretty much got rid of all of their bulk section for a while there and weren't allowing people to shop in it. And then another grocery store that I go to had the area restricted, so you had to kind of work through an employee to access those items. I will say that during coronavirus, I have made some compromises that I wouldn't make under other circumstances. I mean, I really do think at this time we need to put our health first and foremost and be focused on that. I mean, this is unprecedented for our lifetime. And so, I've been taking some different strides. And then also just knowing that the people who are out right now working, they already have a lot of stress that they wouldn't usually have. And so I'm conscious of that right now too, as far as making I maybe wouldn't feel so coy about making a special request, let's say, under other circumstances, but I don't do it right now for that reason.
Yeah, well said. Well said. We definitely need to keep in mind the people who are on the front lines of this in grocery stores and having to deal with that. So, that's a compromise that unfortunately I think we do have to make right now, and I'm glad to hear that you support that. A similar question that I had is that one of the things that we've been hearing over the last couple of months is that there's been an increase in the amount of trash being generated from single-use plastics from takeout because people aren't going into restaurants anymore. They're getting takeout. Is there anything that you have that you could recommend for people who are doing that to try to reduce their waste?
That's a great question. Takeout is an area that I still am trying to work through. And for me, what I feel the most comfortable doing at this time is getting pizza for takeout, which I know not everybody likes pizza, and it might not work for some people's dietary restrictions or whatnot, but pizza tends to come in a cardboard box that is biodegradable. I know that whether or not a recycling place takes it depends on how greasy it is. And in fact, I think I've heard that here in Tallahassee, they don't take pizza boxes. But they are biodegradable. So if you have a compost pile or something like that, you can put it in there. So that's the area that I feel most comfortable with. Every now and then I'll get Asian takeout, and I'll specify like the kind of to-go container that I want, because I like this, or I'll ask them if if they'd be willing to give it to me in this. And it's like it's a tall to-go container that they usually put soups and stuff like that in. And that's because it's a higher grade plastic, and I'll reuse that for my compost. Actually, I put my items that I'm going to put in the compost pile in those to-go containers like I was just talking about, and I put it in my freezer. And then once it fills up, then I put it out in my compost, so I'm not going in and out of the house all the time.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And I know that's one of the things that I've been most concerned about is, with me is getting takeout all the time. The last couple of months is that it generates a lot more waste than simply going into the restaurant. One of the ways that I've been doing it, which is nowhere near to the level that you are, Mary, is I just simply specify in the special instructions no utensils.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see the number of times that a restaurant would give me plastic utensils when I was just going to take it home, and I'm not really sure where else I would have taken it, but that's just their procedure. So if you specify that in the instructions, they won't give it to you, and that's a good way to reduce, one part of it. A couple of questions coming here in the chat about the PLU code. Can you tell us a little bit more about what a PLU code is?
Oh, I'm not sure what that stands for now that you ask, but I think it basically comes down to like price per unit or something like that. So when you're in the bulk section, there will be like a hashtag usually, or it'll say, usually I believe PLU, and then it'll be a number, and that's what you keep track of. And then when you check out, the cashier looks at that and then weighs the item that you have, and then they charge based on the weight.
I'll just read this off here. There's a suggestion that there is a solid bar of shampoo that you can buy that comes in a paper bag that you don't have to have a plastic shampoo bottle. So there's a lot of interest in that in the comments here. Apparently, you can buy it from Lush online. Another question that I had here is you had mentioned at one point the zero waste movement. Have you ever had a week or a month in which you have generated zero waste?
For me, my biggest tripping point is soy milk. I drink either soy or almond milk, and I wish that we had a milk delivery person like they did back in the 50s or something. That would make things so much easier for me. And I know that you can make your own, and I have tried that before without success. Mine did not taste good at all. So I'm not sure what I did wrong. I guess I need to give that another whirl. But as it is, that's my biggest stumbling block right now. And I do drink soy milk every day with my coffee. And so I consistently have that in my garbage can. So unfortunately, I don't think I have, but that is the main garbage that I produce, is that, because I do make a point to instead of getting frozen produce, I'll try and get my produce either fresh or else canned to avoid that plastic bag, for example. And yeah, just a lot of little things that add up where I reduce it.
Awesome. So I think my last question here then is if you were to recommend someone to start with one thing to reduce their waste generation, what would it be?
Great question. Well, if it is a female, I usually recommend that they consider carrying a large purse. And because there's so many times that you're picking up just one or two things someplace and they'll just automatically put it in a plastic bag for you. And so I just always put stuff in my purse instead. It's big enough that it can contain that. So if that's your style, if that fits with your aesthetic, I recommend that for females. And then also I carry a reusable bag that folds up into a small little square. I keep that in my purse and I have that with me at all times. So if I end up having an unexpected whatever need to carry something, I'll always have that available. For a guy, the best thing to start with, maybe those shampoo bars. I actually have one myself that I really like. The brand is High Bar. It's from Minneapolis. I'm from Minnesota, so I guess I'm kind of partial to that. But I've tried a lot of different shampoo and conditioner bars, and for me, this one seems to be working the best. So, I mean, I know a lot of men wear their hair shorter anyway, so I think that would be an easy enough spot or place for them to start.
It's an excellent suggestion. I have no need for it. I appreciate it. Yeah, so thank you so much, Mary. This has been really, really helpful. Can you tell us, what is your Instagram name?
Yeah, it is Mary_0 disposable plastic. And zero is spelled out ZERO, and then disposable plastic is all one word there. But yeah, I try and post almost every other day or so, and just a lot of little things that I do that in the end I think add up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Not sure I'm getting that. Well, thank you guys. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to send them to admin@sustainabletallahassee.org, and we'll be sure to forward them to Mary. So with
Thanks,
that,
everyone. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
yeah, thank you all. Good night.
Good night.